I warned that the Occupy movement would become violent and that they would look to radicals like the Weather Underground to help them. And they're doing it. Another resource the Occupy movement is tapping into, this one. What is this? This is great. The Street Sheet. The cover reads, "Victory for the homeless families. Occupy everything." Now, this is the Christmas edition. You see here the kids got Christmas gifts, and ooh, look, little Billy got bolt cutters. And Sarah, well, she got a tire iron. Isn't that great? Sweet. Published by the Coalition on Homelessness. I don't know why the homeless need a tire iron or bolt cutters. It's full of all kinds of useful information, like articles celebrating the success of Occupy's Housing Action Day. Right here, San Francisco Housing Action. There's one how police are mean to the homeless people. And don't forget to learn the words to the occupation chant, which is right here on page 2, the occupation. What do you think your protest will bring? How much longer do we have to hear you sing? A long time until you cease and desist. Stand together, resist, resist. These people, get a life. This is all rhetoric to mobilize the progressives and radicals. Now, I want to bring in a guy who has spent years covering the progressives up in Albany, and that's where they're going to be. They're behind next month's Occupy Meets Weather Underground event in Albany. He's a guy that if I tell you, if my wife says one more word about you, I say she's cheating on me with another talk show host. She came home last week. She's like, "Andrew Wilkow is the greatest. I just love him. He is so..." I'm like, "What do you... Can you stop?" She didn't even listen to my show. She listens to you all.
Well, my wife doesn't listen to my show either. I think that's
your wife to listen to my show.
Talk radio.
Okay. So, Andrew, tell me about what... Albany?
Yeah.
Albany.
Albany's a hotbed. You know what it is? It's a small pond for big fish. You know, if you can't get a real audience here, if your bullhorn isn't firing up in New York City, you go to Albany. They have the Working Families Party.
Right.
They have this thing called the Women's Building.
It's
called the Women's Building, and it sounds as innocuous as Code Pink. You know, you see these women, they're so grandmotherly, and they seem so innocent and nice until you hear them actually talk about their politics and their worldview. It's called the Women's Building, and it's at 373 Central Avenue. I know because I live just a few blocks away from it when I lived there. It's in the downtown, which if you look at anything about Albany's downtown, it's hip, it's eclectic, it's all the things you'd want, you know, for a hip, small, mid-sized city that happens to be the capital of New York. It's also the home of 15 or 20 different progressive socialist organizations, and it's led by one woman named Erin O'Brien. I don't want to make her famous, but we would see her everywhere, wherever we would send our news van. If there was some left-wing agitation going on,
it was Erin O'Brien.
Yeah, who was also, by the way, on full disability state welfare. And every time there's an issue, housing or food or healthcare, an organization magically pops up. They get a website and some stationery. It's the same 15 or 20 people operating out of this one building that's supposed to be a women's art and cultural facility where women come together and, I don't know, crochet. But this building is the epicenter of all of these organizations like the Working Families Party and everything else. It's all coordinated from this one location.
It's like the funeral home of SEIU down in New Orleans.
Yeah, like one of those acorn outposts. Yeah, just like that. Just like that.
Okay, so what is the deal with the Occupy? I mean, I can't believe I was in Occupy Fairhope, Alabama. And Fairhope, Alabama, and Occupy Fairhope comes up, and I'm like, come on, guys, really? I mean, you live in Fairhope.
Like one guy?
I mean, no, it was big.
I saw Occupy Santa Fe. That was pretty funny.
Really?
Yeah. I thought they were just camping.
Occupy Fairhope was rather large and nasty, really nasty. How many people do you think, in Occupy Albany? And really, they're joining with the Weather Underground to celebrate a convicted killer?
Not surprised. This is, when I was there, I was asked by the Albany County Democrats. I mean, here I was doing this conservative talk show on the big station there, WGY, and I got a call from one of the Democrats because the next northernmost county, Saratoga, is controlled by Republicans. And they passed a law banning sex offenders from living within, you know, these local ordinances, 1,000 feet. And the Albany City Democrats were fighting the Albany County Democrats over this proposed legislation in Albany County. So I came to speak to the Albany County legislature, which is predominantly populated by Albany City Democrats. I could not believe they were rolling out people who were trying to portray these level 3 sex offenders, the most hardcore of the hardcore, as people whose civil rights are now being violated because we don't want them hanging out at bus stops where children gather. This is a very radical place. You have the Lark Street area, you have Arbor Hill, this whole area.
What's the mentality? What has happened? How did this happen, Andrew? I mean, how did this?
It's the state capital. I mean, you see this in a lot of state capitals. You see this in not so much in Hartford, Connecticut, but you know, this is where policy for the state is done. This is where you get the state workers where they come and it's like the Roach Motel. They check in, they never check out. You also have the Albany Law School right there at the edge of Washington Park. I lived on the backside of the parking lot. I remember walking through the parking lot one night and seeing a bumper sticker that said, "Friends don't let friends vote Republican." That ought to tell you where a lot of these law school staffers stand.
So how embedded is it in the schools? Like in Wisconsin, the teachers, I mean, Wisconsin is lost.
I'm going to try not to make you laugh with this one. Mayor Jerry Jennings, I don't know if he's even still the mayor, he came out of the union teacher hack thing. He actually brought a bat to a meeting because he thought I was going to be there when the Guardian Angels tried to open a chapter. They had a stabbing at the middle school that's affiliated with Albany High School. It's on the other side of it's on the other side of Arbor Hill. And all the news cameras were there because they were going to have one of these big, let's come together, let's talk this out. So they decided to buy all the kids donuts. And I'm not kidding. So we sent our news van down, and I took myself down there with a Marty, with a mobile recorder and broadcast unit, and I see a group of kids that are standing off to the side that just look dangerous as hell for 14-year-olds or 13-year-olds. And I said, no one's talking to them. They're all talking to the kids who are the teacher's pet and might be the student government president. And I walk over and start talking to these kids, and they're telling me that nothing's going to change. And you know what? Every time somebody tries to enforce discipline or law and order on these kids, some progressive group comes out and says, you're racist, you're infringing, you don't understand, you don't get what life is like here. It's sickening. They can't get anything done because of just progressives eat one another when you leave them alone.
Yeah.
You try anything that makes sense to any normal person, and they just one on top of another. They've got 5,000 different organizations that all cannibalize one another.
I've been saying it for a while. I've been saying that once they, for instance, in the Middle East, these progressives are working with the Muslim Brotherhood. Muslim Brotherhood is going to eat you. When they're done with us, they're going to eat you.
Yeah.
But that's what they do. They gather together, and then they wait. You wait, really, for the revolution to come. Who's betrayed the revolution? You betrayed the revolution, or I'm going to take your spot. And they kill each other. They sometimes literally kill each other.
You should see, I mean, you want to talk, and on the other side, you talk about occupying the unions. There is nothing more frightening than the Albany Labor Day Parade. First you get the green shirts, the AFS-CME, and then you get the purple shirts, you get the SCIU. I mean, you'd think you were in the old Soviet Union the way these floats are. It's purple,
it's
blue,
here in New
green.
York.
Oh yeah, but this is Albany.
I know.
When you see this labor parade, which went right by my old apartment because I lived on the main park, it was crazy. You're like, I didn't know that this town was this controlled by so few people. The labor bosses I mean, they run everything. The progressives run everything in Albany, which is why it's pretty much a cesspool. Pretty much. I don't mean to make you laugh on this one.
No, I know. I agree with you. How long have you been on this?
I started in Albany in 2003, and I left in 2006. So I was there for 3 solid years.
When did you realize we have a cancer that's killing us?
I went to Occupy Wall Street in its infancy. I went down there, not as a talk show host, just as a guy who wanted to see what was going on. This is before the homeless people started moving and the rapes started occurring, and they tried to come up with some sort of, we'll settle it internally Security Council. And I was talking to some of the people, and it was amazing to me how clueless. It all sounded so good to them. It all sounded, we're going to make things right, and we're going to make things just. And it was like, yeah, but are you going to be governed by this? Are you going to be this willing participant who's going to give up all of these freedoms and liberties? Do you realize what you're talking about here? I asked one person who would, you know, they all denied that they were Obama supporters. I said, what pasture you think these unicorns are going to come from? They're going to run this government that you think is never going to take anything for itself. Show me which of, and usually they'll cite France or one of the Scandinavian countries. I'm like, yeah, but show me one of these countries without an aristocracy where you've literally leveled everything and it all works and nobody has more than anybody else. Nobody has two while someone has none. Where do you see this? They don't have an answer. They don't have an answer. It feels good until you, I mean, even Whoopi Goldberg figured this one out. Communism all sounds good till you put people in charge. Then you have gulags.
I've been thinking just the other day. I was driving in the car and I was listening to the news and I thought, I keep hearing recently, I've just started to hear in every, you know, really bad like Star Trek movie or anything, it always ends the same way. Self-destruct mode in 3 minutes, 21 seconds. And I keep hearing that. Self-destruct mode in 3 minutes and 17 seconds. And nobody's paying attention. We're all walking around going, hey, this thing is going to self-destruct. It can't continue. You can't continue to do this to the world and to society and expect it to all end. And it doesn't end like the movies always do. 3, 2. It doesn't end that way. It never does.
I was fascinated by one kid I talked to. We went down there, and I had a pocket Constitution on me. And I started talking to him, and we were actually setting up a broadcast for my radio. I was going to do a special weekend show. And he started to, you know, what are you guys doing? I said, well, we're going to put this microphone here, and anybody that wants to debate me or talk to us, we're going to leave the mic live, and we're satellite, so if there's an objectionable word, we are right. And he started to give me his line. I pulled out a pocket Constitution. I said, this is going to take you less than 20 minutes to read. Come back to me, and I'll put you on the air when you're done. And he comes back. He's like, I agree with this, and I agree with that. And this is a really good idea. I'm like, yeah. Why are you, yeah, pretty much. Yep, yeah. All of that. All of it.
Yeah, it works, doesn't it?
He's like, people should have the right to have guns. I'm like, yeah. You know, it was like, I felt like I got through to one person, but some of the people that were down there just were living in, it was beyond the wannabe Woodstock and the, you know, maybe I'm smoking.
Self-destruct mode in 2 minutes and 8 seconds.
The worst part is they're professors who live very high on the hog at schools like NYU and Columbia. They get
Notice
tenure.
nobody's occupying those.
Yeah, they keep these kids. And, you know, I remember this in college, too, and I just didn't buy into it. I feel like, you know, you really don't know the real world. And I also blame what I like to call the academic industrial complex. They tell these kids, yeah, get an advanced degree in Mayan art. Because, yeah, you know, after you graduate from NYU with an advanced degree, there'll certainly be a market out there for your skill set. You'll be $150,000 in debt, but don't worry. And then these kids are saddled like home buyers who took the government's line that, yeah, you could afford this home. They're saddled with this debt and a degree that provides them no real job opportunities. No wonder why they fall right into this.
Right. I don't remember who it was that, or what the degree was, but we saw one of the Occupy Wall Streeters. We sent our cameras down there, and one of them was saying basically, you know, Mayan art degree. I have a degree in Mayan art.
And I'm really smart.
And I can't get a job. And I'm like, that's the problem. You know what that is? That's the American Idol thing, where no parent said, you ain't going to get a job with that.
Well, back
what are you going to get?
You either had to go into the military or get your parents to give you some money, or you had to borrow it, and the loan officer says, so what are you going to study? You know, now with the government saying, well, we'll forgive your loans and everybody should go to college, why would you even assess the discipline of failure?
Yeah.
Why would you even think about it? I want to find myself in college.
Right, especially since there is no failure. They never had failure. You get the trophy.
Everybody gets a trophy.
You get the trophy. I remember the first time I went to T-ball and I watched my daughter play and it was 8-8. And I'm like, really? 8-8? Is that way why am I coming? I know how it ends.
Well, it's 8-8. It's one thing when the 3-year-olds are doing it. When you're 16 years old and you're still playing T-ball.
No, I have a problem with the 3-year-old too. I really do. What are you doing? It doesn't end that way. It doesn't end that way. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for having me
Good to see you. Back in a minute.